Okay, so we are interviewing Marielle, and we want to speak with her because she made the move from New York City to Greater Orlando, Florida. So Marielle, do you mind sharing when you moved, just who you were with, just kind of how, just a little bit about the move in general?
I moved in September 2015. I left New York City. I lived in the Bronx, and we moved to Central Florida. And then from Central Florida, now I live in Oviedo. What was the other questions?
That's
Either
okay.
One question at a time.
That's okay. So how long did you live in New York City?
I was born and raised in New York City, so I lived in Washington Heights for about 20 years, and then I moved to the Bronx for 3 years, and then that's when we moved down to Florida.
Gotcha. So what attracted you to Florida at first? Like maybe not even necessarily Orlando, maybe it was Orlando, but what attracted you to Florida first?
The weather.
The weather, gotcha.
Yes, it is very cold in New York. It snows. I went to Syracuse University I was there for 4 years, and that snow was enough to drive me out of New York State.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Makes sense. And you had 2 little kids when you moved from New York.
Yes.
This is very brave of you.
My son was 20 months old, and my daughter was just 3 weeks old when we decided to pack up and go.
And how was the drive down with kids?
Oof. It was rough. It was stopping every 3 hours with a loaded car and a newborn. We stayed overnight in a hotel right off the side of the highway somewhere in South Carolina, took a little 6-hour nap, and then hit the road again. So we were able to do it in just 2 days.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot. And did you have a moving truck, or was it just what was in your car? Did you guys totally start over here? How did you do that?
We loaded up the car with essentials. I had a newborn, so I needed all the newborn things and a toddler and a TV to entertain us. But then we hired movers to pack up our big items, bed, couches. And we waited about 3 weeks for that stuff. So we were in a townhouse with no furniture and 2 little kids.
Wow. And you rented first to kind of figure out where you wanted to be?
Yes, we didn't want to commit because it was such a big decision to move. So we rented a townhouse for about 4 years, and then we purchased a home in Oviedo.
And how did you choose Orlando, Florida?
I wanted somewhere that was close to the beaches, somewhere warm, and Orlando was the only place that I had family in. So it seemed like the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that you're in Florida, what are your favorite parts of living here?
Definitely the beach. It was one of the reasons why we chose Central Florida. The beaches, you can go anywhere between an hour or 2 hours, the East Coast and the West Coast. So that's if I had to choose what to do over the weekend, that would be my go-to. For kids, there's always a lot to do. There's the theme parks, water parks. It's just kind of like all year round fun.
And you live in Oviedo, which is known for outstanding schools, very family-friendly community. Are you happy you chose Oviedo? What stands out to you here, I guess?
I love Oviedo. The schools are great. The people are great. There's a big sense of community. It's big enough where, you can still drive maybe 15 minutes and still be in Oviedo, but small enough where my kids know people everywhere. We go to the supermarket, they know their friends. We go to Target and Walmart, and wherever we literally go, my kids are saying hi to everyone. And obviously, I know their parents. So for me, it's a big sense of community that I love.
Is there anything that you miss about living in New York City?
The food.
The food?
For sure.
What in particular?
Well, I'm Dominican, so for me, Hispanic food is, I miss the rice, the beans, plantains. You can do that and make that stuff all out here, but for some reason, it just tastes very different from New York than it does here. Obviously, there's the pizza is very different. And just the food scene in general in New York City is very different and very good.
Agreed. Were there any surprises that you had? Maybe something you expected about Florida that didn't happen, or something that did happen that you were shocked by?
I think what shocked me the most when I moved down here is that a lot of Floridians have kind of that island life mentality. Coming from New York, we're very fast paced, and down here, it just literally reminds me of like living in the Caribbean, but in the United States.
Have you ever regretted moving from New York to Florida? Not at all.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. I've visited New York a few times since I've been down here, and every time that I do go back after like 48 hours, I'm like, okay, it was great seeing my family, the food was great, but now I'm ready to go back to the less busy part of life.
Yeah, makes sense. I know you kind of mentioned the weather here. Does the heat bother you? Does it get to you, the weather, the rain, or do you enjoy it overall?
I love the heat, so the heat does not bother me. Even when it's 100 degrees outside, it's fine. The rain, for sure. I don't like driving in the rain. For me, it's a little bit scary. It doesn't rain that much in New York, but thankfully, I live and work in Oviedo, so I don't have to drive very far if it does rain. So I don't drive too much in it, but if I had to choose not to drive in the rain, I would not.
So I see this question a lot from non-Floridians. Have hurricanes been a big problem, or should anyone thinking of moving here be afraid of hurricanes?
Not in Central Florida. I think if we were closer to the water, then maybe. My first hurricane, I was freaking out. I am not going to lie about that. But after experiencing it, we did lose power for a day and a half. So that wasn't fun in the heat, but that was the worst of it. Like, we didn't, windows didn't break, our house didn't flood, we didn't have any leaks. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah. Would you say that your day-to-day life has improved?
Greatly.
In what ways?
In New York, if you have a car, there's traffic and parking that takes up a lot of your time. So I feel like in New York, although I had all my friends and family there, my quality of life was very small just because we spent so much time in just commuting back and forth to wherever we needed to go. There were times where I would get out of work and sometimes I wouldn't get home till 3 hours later just because of traffic and parking. Whereas here in Florida, it's getting a little bit busier, but not as bad as New York. So I just feel like I've gained hours of my life back.
That's awesome. Is there anything in your daily life that has suffered after moving here?
Not really, because I think, again, I had my friends and my family and I had help with my kids in New York, so I would say maybe I lack that aspect of my life, but I would still choose not having to sit in 3 hours worth of traffic than to have help here in Florida.
Do you have any advice for anyone moving to Florida from up north from New York, I guess I should say, or just anything else that you want to share about your experience?
Move to Florida. I'm trying to convince my whole family to move down here. We're slowly making moves, but I don't regret it. I think that especially the older we get, we value different things, and although New York City is fun and full of culture, diversity, that Florida also can offer the same with a better quality of life.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add, or is that everything?
That's all.
Thank you.